into the online broadcast network, AFTERBUZZ TV. Over 20 million weekly downloads in over 150 countries, and your number one source for after-show entertainment. AFTERBUZZ TV, the destination for TV superfans. Producing aftershows for over 300 of your favorite TV shows. Interviewing celebrities and showrunners. And bringing you behind-the-scenes exclusives. All thanks to E! Entertainment's Maria Menounos, producer Kevin Undergaro, and internet leader Akamai. Now, let the buzz begin!
Hi, everybody, and welcome to AfterBuzz Spotlight On, where we feature one-on-one interviews with people in TV, notable new people and notable people. And today we have a very notable person. You may recognize our guest today. He has an extensive IMDb list, but you may recognize him most likely from two of the biggest shows that have debuted this past year or so: True Detective and Orange is the New Black. Please welcome to the show, Michael Harney. Michael Harney, hi there. How are you doing?
Hey, I'm good, man. Thanks for having me.
We're so grateful to have you on this show. So, I want to start really at the beginning before we get into all the good stuff with Orange is the New Black. Just because, well, first of all, we bonded a little bit before the show started over being fellow New Yorkers,
right?
Both from Queens. So, you got that going for you. And you actually had a lot of work that you've done on Broadway out in New York before you even came out to LA, before you started your, I guess your credits on IMDb at least start in around 92.
Yeah, I didn't do a lot of work on Broadway, per se. I did one show I did on the Waterfront.
Mm-hmm.
I think that was in 95, and we had a very short run. But I did I probably did close to 100 plays off Broadway.
Yeah.
Over the years that I was acting in New York, I started up in a repertory company upstate for 2 years, and then when I got to New York, I started studying and just did a lot of shows. I produced most of them and built sets, painted, did everything.
What got you into it? What got you into this career?
It was an accident. My dad was an impersonator in the Navy, and so he used to impersonate all the great actors, Basil Rathbone and Lionel Barrymore, Laurence Olivier, Sir Michael Redgrave, all these guys.
Going way back, old school.
Yeah, old school. And he was great. I mean, he was really, really good at it. And I remember just getting into that, and then when I started writing when I was like 16, I wrote a lot of poetry for like 3 or 4 years. So I loved art. I was drawn to looking at really good paintings or paintings that I thought were great, and spent a lot of time writing. Actually, I would, instead of doing homework, I'd lock myself in my room and I'd write for like 3 or 4 hours when I was really young. And then I went, was kind of had a decision to become a social worker, not really knowing what that meant at that time, but I wound up going to Nassau Community College and studying social work, basically sociology, criminal justice. I started working in civil rights and studying civil rights, concentrating on learning more about apartheid in South Africa. I became a journalist. I was writing for the college newspaper while I was doing this, and I really wanted to do something where I was helping people, and I did a lot of work in prison reform.
Yeah.
With, in those days, volunteer work, but we worked with the United Church of Christ and the Fortune Society, and a couple of professors I had who were wonderful, Sylvester Wise and Porter Kirkwood, and Porter's wife, who was a minister then, and I learned a lot. I learned a lot about people and about my place in the world, and then I went upstate to Geneseo, and I thought there was a hands-on program up there too, where I could get out into the field and really work with people. But I was drinking a little bit too much in those days. So
it's college.
That's right.
It's college.
Oh, no, it was a little more than that. So I wound up in basically all the courses were theory based, and I was driving me crazy. So I took an elective, which was acting, and I wound up with this guy John Barrett, who was from the Royal Academy of Dramatic Art, and he went up there to retire with his wife. And so I just did 7 shows back to back with him, and I took his classes, and he was wild, man. He was like, getting into the alpha state and doing breathing work and really understanding.
Well, he trained under Sanford Meisner, right?
No.
No, that was later
John
on.
Barrett. He was from RADA. He was actually a nuclear physicist, and he worked on the Manhattan Project.
Oh, really?
And in those days, they didn't tell them. Evidently, as the story came down to us, he didn't know what he was working on. And when he found out what he was working on, he had like a complete breakdown, and went into art and ran acting and dance companies throughout Europe. But I met him way after that. I met him when he was like 70, and he turned me on to the classics, some of the classics, and.
So you did mention that your dad did a lot of impersonations of people back in the era. Who were your favorite actors growing up? Was there anyone you were looking to emulate when you started getting into this craft at all?
Yeah, because of my dad, early on it was Laurence Olivier and Peter O'Toole, Albert Finney.
Okay.
Mostly the British guys.
Yeah.
John Gielgud. And I used to watch them, and I'd listen to my dad and Ronald Colman. There's a far, far better place we go. And my dad would do them, and just really wonderful. And I'd listen, and I learned a lot just by watching. I just had a real interest in watching these guys work. And then as I got older, I found that class in college by accident, as I said, and then when I got to New York, I really I started really looking into classes with people like from Sanford Meisner's work, and
so you really started to embrace it once you came back down to the city.
Yeah. Well, I was embracing it before, but I was in another way.
But as far as a career option,
as
opposed to
option,
taking it as an elective
right.
up top, then you came down and decided, let me pursue this and see where this takes me.
That's right. That's when
awesome.
I got back after the 2 years of my last 2 years of college.
Beautiful. So how long were you in New York doing off Broadway and off theater down in New York?
That was 78 to 95.
Oh, okay. So a good 20 years. So what got you moving over to TV? Because I noticed that it started around 92 for you to do TV.
92, that was really, the first thing I did, I think, was a walk and talk with Paul Sorvino and Chris Noth up in Harlem for Law and Order. We did like 5 Law and Orders a long time ago. And we did, that was about 92, I think.
Yeah.
Or I was doing under 5s for soap operas and walk-ons. And actually, I just passed by in the back of the scene, and I did a lot of that.
So was I noticed that one of the things that they have featured in your bio is Detective Mike Roberts over in NYPD Blue.
Oh, yeah.
So was that your first somewhat breakout role? I know it was more of a reoccurring character.
Yeah. I couldn't get hired in New York, really, in any type of acting work. And I got a call that they were interested in finding this detective for the show. And so they hired me, and I wound up going back and forth to Los Angeles because I still had students. I was teaching then, and I committed 2 years to them, so I couldn't leave and just say, I'm going to forget you guys, And I didn't really trust anybody at that point to turn them over to, so I kept going back and forth. And
plus, it's a good steady gig. I mean, teaching, I'm guessing, is a little bit more of a steady gig than
It was, but at that point, I was really starting to act more, so I had tapered down my practice 75% by that point. And so I was teaching very little. I used to teach 4 or 5 classes. I'd just sit with a pot of coffee, and I'd work morning, afternoon, and evening.
Okay.
Which was, it was an honor to be able to teach that work. It was very, it's the real deal. I worked with Bill Esper and Phil Gushee, both of whom worked with Sanford Meisner each for 25 years, and it was really an honor when Phil asked me to teach with him. And I remember sitting in my teacher's chair on a Saturday with this class of 4 or 5 people and shaking because I didn't feel up to the task, And then I realized by just focusing on them, it just came out of me. All this stuff came out of me. Half the time I didn't even know what I was saying. But, yeah.
Well, let me get back to NYPD Blue, because I'm old enough to remember NYPD Blue when it first came out, and it was a very controversial show for its time.
Right.
Nowadays, if you look back at episodes of NYPD Blue, you think it's nothing. But back then, it was a big deal. It was the first show to really have the closest thing to a curse word at that time. The language was more risque. You actually got to see bare bottoms on that show. It was definitely a show that was in the news a lot. What was it like when you got on this show as a recurring character? What was that experience like?
It was really wonderful, and I still say today, everything I've gotten out here in Hollywood, I kind of attribute to Stephen Bochco and David Milch, because they were the guys that took me on, and kept me around. They didn't have to do that. What it was like was a very intense. Most of the circumstances that we were doing were fairly intense. The writing was excellent. David Milch is one of the finest writers around. And the cast was very dedicated. We were all really dedicated to creating something really special. And I don't know. It was just one of those. I've been very lucky, and starting with that show out here, that was I've just been very, very lucky to be with great people, and that doesn't happen all the time. And those guys were at the top of their game, from producers to directors to writers to actors, actresses. The crew were fantastic.
Well, I believe your character in particular, Detective Mike Roberts, was he had a bit of a loose morals. I think it would be safe to say.
Right.
Yeah, which was, again, for a show back then that came out at that time, they definitely touched on a lot of. They definitely took a lot of risks and chances with the writing, just everything all together. So, and I noticed that also some of your other work, which we'll get into, also a lot of characters that I think can definitely float on both sides of the line, so to speak. Very complex. Is that something that that attracts you as an actor? Something you look for when you're looking at where you want to work?
Well, yeah, the complexity of roles. Every role is complex. It depends on how you approach it. But some roles are complex simply in the writing. So I've been lucky enough to have really good writers give the complexity to me on a silver platter, so to speak. See? So what that does is it triggers my imagination and the creative process as it lives and breathes in me. And then things begin to occur for me. And it's a turn on. To be able to live through that for a number of reasons. One is that I think we're all very complex. Most of us don't show it, we hide it. And so it's an opportunity for me as an artist to do something that is, let's say, revealing, not just to myself or about myself, but to others, to say, if I do it truthfully, they might say, yeah, had moments like that. I could do that. So that's something that's a turn on for me to be able to do that. And I think it's interesting because of my poor mother was raised a Bronx Irish Catholic. My poor mother would say, you tell them you're a nice person, don't you? And she called me and said, when I was doing NYPD Blue, she said, you tell them you're a nice person, right? So, but I think it's great because we all have clay feet, So it's almost like an artistic path for me. It's become this artistic path, the roles that I've gotten, so many ethically challenged characters that give in to the inclination of allowing themselves to, cross the line.
I find that a lot of people seem very attracted to those kinds of roles. I find also when I've interviewed people who you may hate on TV,
right,
that it's almost like they have to show even more that they're not that kind of person in real life, because they just end up being some of the most charismatic, most fun people to be around, and you're like, well, I hate you on TV, but I can't hate you, the actor, because you're just, this totally different kind of person.
Yeah, sometimes.
Do you find that from time to time when people recognize you from some of your roles and they try
they treat me that way?
Yeah, and they treat you a certain way?
Yeah, man. Sure. They give me dirty looks, or they're afraid of me, And it's, I'm totally the opposite in my life. But I have those aspects of me that I don't participate with in the world with. We all do.
Well, I know I read a very recent interview with you where you talk, and you mentioned this a little bit in the beginning of the show, that you lived. I think it said you lived about 48 years of life within your first 20 years.
Yeah,
that you had a bit of a wild streak.
Just a bit. Yeah,
growing up, and you turned that around in your career. Yeah. And but I would imagine that those life experiences definitely have something that you benefit from, that you pull from when you're doing these roles. Yeah. I mean, the most obvious example is your work with prison reform and playing Sam Healy on Orange Is the New Black. I'm sure you pull a lot from those experiences.
Yeah, I do, but it's not like I sit there and I go, gee, I remember that guy when I was 21, and I don't do that. It's kind of like I remember things like the door slamming behind me when I went in to visit this guy Frank, and the clang of that door, that heavy metal door, and meeting a guy named Tiny, who was probably 6'9" and 300 pounds, and there wasn't an ounce of fat on him. He shook my hand like this, how you doing? Like it was a feather, Weird things like that, or sitting in the trailer outside waiting to go in with families that were obviously in tremendous struggle with their father or their husband in jail. This was up in Ossining State Penitentiary. And or the drive up, or getting on the subway and taking public transit up there, little things, or bringing the guy vegetables because he liked to cook vegetables, but as I get older, it's kind of like it's just all there. It's really kind of weird. I heard a guy say one time, I just read my part over and over and over and over and over again. And I read that about like 8 years ago, and that's what I do now. It's really weird. I just read it over and over and over again, and things just occur. They just start happening. And then I show up, and like a friend of mine said the other day, he said, yeah, you just behave. And that's true. It's just, I just live through the process.
Well, I will say from watching Orange Is the New Black, I found it really, really interesting. I when we first see you, I mean, there's this lovability about your character, I think, in the very beginning. A little I don't want to say clueless, but obviously set in his ways when he's talking to Piper about not making any friends, not making any lesbian friends, and definitely, as I said, I think at the season finale, the most recent one, your lesbian witch hunt, so to speak, although it didn't seem so much like one back then. But it was kind of like this guy who's a little bit out of touch, trying to befriend this cute inmate who just came in. And then in season 1, it started to take a bit of a darker turn. and we got to see a lot. And I really loved your character in Orange Is the New Black, because it definitely took us, I think, for a ride. By the end of season 1, you weren't a villain, but you definitely took on some darker tones leading up to the finale, when you walked away from a prison fight that you could have saved. So how much of that did you know going in that Healy was going to be involved with, or was that a character you got to create through reading over and over again and getting the behavior? What was the process for that with Orange?
Well, I don't know what's going to happen before it happens.
Mm-hmm.
I have no idea. It just kind of take it. They give me the script and I have some time. They're pretty good with me. I get some time,
yeah,
a week or two, and then I can read it, and I go over it and over it and over it, and but I don't know what's going to happen from episode to episode. I don't know. Is that what you mean?
Well, I guess so. I just felt like I was just wondering if just out of all the characters, I think your character, well, next to Piper's, your character is taking a bit of a twist and turn. I mean, definitely, like by the end of season 1, you hit a bit of a dark patch there. Definitely were not as friendly with Piper as you were. But I believe season 2 seemed a little bit more of a redemption arc for you, between you and Pennsatucky. You definitely seem to find your purpose a little bit more. So it was still a bit of a struggle, but you definitely bonded with the other villain, more or less, from toward the end of season 1.
Right.
Yeah.
It's like people say to me oftentimes, are you a good guy or a bad guy? And that's, I never look at it that way.
Mm-hmm.
It's really it's something that really, if I looked at it that way, that I would really be limiting myself. So to answer your question,
mm-hmm.
What I do is I live through it.
Mm-hmm.
So I throw myself like that, into what I'm doing.
Mm.
So I'm leading with my heart. I'm going in and I'm actually having an organic experience of the circumstances that they're giving me to live through.
Mm. So
once I do that, things start happening. Things are triggered in me. So it just sort of happens, because now I know Sam Healy. I know what it's like to be Sam Healy.
What is your perspective on him?
It's so multifaceted. Wouldn't be able to really describe it.
Mm-hmm.
It's just it's like my dad. My son said to me, "Dad, why can't I see my eyes?" And what he's saying is he's in here, looking out,
Yeah.
And so it's one of the reasons I don't watch my work, because
really?
because if I look, it's weird. It's just like I'm like, wait a minute, I'm doing it from in here, and now I'm watching it. It just doesn't compute. And I do some. I mean, if they ask me to do that for ADR or something like that, I do it. But I just don't want to do
Try
it.
not to.
So Healy is, I'm living through this process with him, and I don't put a harness on it. I don't try to rein him in. I go, well, yeah, you can go do that. Or I might read something and say, gee, I don't think, I wouldn't be in that part of the prison at that time to do something. And I just, well, let me just give it a shot, and I read it over and over and over again. Then all of a sudden it's like, oh yeah, of course I would, man. And that's really the writing, because if the writing is good, you'll have times as an actor where you're looking at the writing, you're reading the writing, and the writing will actually not really, you won't connect with the circumstances right away. But after you work on it, you'll connect with it on a very deep level. And there'll be like this click, like in a safe, there's a click.
Yeah.
And you turn the tumblers.
Like you just hit the...
It's like that, yeah. So, but if the writing is sort of presentational or dispositional, you don't, you're just kind of getting in there and you're doing the damn thing, which God, I'm very grateful I haven't had a lot of that. So, and I'm really very aware that I'm very lucky.
Yeah. Well, I think what's interesting too, and I wanted to hear your thoughts on this. You starting out back in '92 doing show, and you've done so many different shows. You've had so many guest spots or recurring roles. all the way. And then a show like Orange is the New Black, it's a brand new way of delivering the show. It's it's pretty much binge watching on Netflix. All 13 episodes for both seasons come out in one day, as opposed to a weekly episodic TV show. As an actor, are there any differences, or are there any thoughts that go into that at all, or any surprises as far as people knowing your work like all at once, and not having that delay of what's your character going to do next week? Yeah.
I'd have to say that, with the onset of social media and the new waves of technological distribution of material, that it's kind of like this great force coming up from the earth, and you can't see it. But all of a sudden, I'm driving down the street and like, hey, Healy, we love you, Healy, or something. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
But it's not like, because I'm older, it's not like, well, you were on the news and you were on. I'll never forget. Rod Steiger told me a great story. I asked him, what was it like when you started out? How did it start for you? And he said, well, I did Marty. And I went downstairs that next morning, and it was live TV. And he said, I went downstairs, and the landlord, she was sweeping the front sidewalk in New York, and she said, so what are you going to do tonight, Marty? And then he made a right-hand turn, and the two garbage men in the garbage truck said, hey, Marty, what are you going to do tonight? And I went for my corn muffin and coffee up at a diner, and the waitress said, what are you going to do tonight? And he said it was just like that. He said it was like, and that's kind of like what Orange is the New Black has been in a much smaller way for me. It's like the distribution, the technological distribution, the power of the social media.
Yeah.
It's worldwide. I mean, people are contacting you from Brazil, China, different countries, and saying, we love you, Healy. Do you love Brazil, or do you love, And of course, it might be one person. But you understand?
Yeah, but everyone can see it, like on Twitter, for example.
Yeah, everyone can really see it. All they got to do is punch a button.
And I'm just guessing that for years you were that guy that people saw you and they were like, I know you from somewhere. And it could be from any one of 50 different shows, but they couldn't either place the name, or if they were lucky, they'd get you on one of your credits. But now it must be very different being recognized as a certain character.
It's not so different. I mean, I can blend in. Really, I'm pretty good at blending into environments. That's what I prefer. And I still kind of look like the mailman. So it doesn't really affect me very much. Sometimes, and it's quick, and I think people are aware for the most part. They're very respectful. They're not.
Was there any moment at all that you, looking back, that you said, you can look back on that day and go, holy crap, look what check out where I'm at, how blessed am I right now? Was there one moment, or like an actor you worked with, or a particular show you were on?
Well, many of them.
Yeah.
I mean, I've worked with some great people.
Okay.
When I did Deadwood, David Milch, he's a guy that I always feel very grateful to have in my life.
Well, you knew him from NYPD Blue also, right? I believe, yeah. So.
My friend Mark Zicree, he's the foremost authority on the Twilight Zone. I'm doing something with him now. It's just a science fiction thing that he's putting together. He's like a genius. He just did this book with Guillermo del Toro and Stephen Bochco, and I've had so many. I mean, working with Albert Finney. Yeah.
What about True Detective? We haven't really touched upon that yet. I mean, you were working opposite Matthew McConaughey and Woody Harrelson and a bunch of other great people on that show too. What was a very different kind of show as well, I would have to say. I mean, going from NYPD Blue to shows like True Detective and Orange is the New Black, how has the writing changed? How has the TV industry changed for you?
Well, the TV industry is really it's like film used to be, you know, and you have all these wonderful artists working in television, because it's really the new medium. It's the way to get your stuff out there in so many respects. And I've heard that over and over again for the last 10 years. Working with those guys was great, and Nick Pizzolatto, I think he's the real deal.
Yeah.
He's a really good writer. Working with Matthew and Woody was great. It's like when you're with people that are dedicated to creating good work, it doesn't matter. Like one of my most relaxed acting experiences was working with Al Pacino on Ocean's 13, and it was I had a small role, right? But he was totally immersed in the work. So, and that's what I was doing. So he didn't care about any type of position in life. He was there to do his work. Same thing with Matthew and Woody. It's when you're with good people, it doesn't matter. What matters is the work.
I hear they give the best gifts when you're working opposite them, as far as a one-on-one situation.
You mean generosity of spirit?
Yes.
Yes, absolutely.
Yeah.
Those are the most valuable gifts. And then you don't forget them. And they're like a wellspring, that you constantly can draw off of. And on a bad day, you can say, hey, I did some pretty good stuff. I might suck today, but I did some pretty good stuff.
So what is it that you're watching today? What shows interest you as far as a TV viewer?
I don't have a lot of
consumer
time to watch. Really.
Well, I can imagine with your schedule.
I'd like to, but I watch documentaries. I'm watching Silver Linings Playbook now. I really engrossed, and I've only gotten 20 minutes in, but I've really been looking forward to seeing that. I like watching lectures. I'll listen to. I like Thomas Keating, who's a Trappist monk, and he talks about centering prayer. I like metaphysics and, trying to figure out, have people talk about what it's all about, and that seems to help me. Just, the way I approach my work, it just helps me do it in a soulful way. Yeah.
So it's almost like research in a way, in case you need it in the future. Just you like to learn.
Yeah, I don't look at it that way. I just go by instinct, And one of the gifts that I got from Bill Esper and Phil Gushee was really being in the moment and living through each moment. And so what occurs to me in that morning, I try to do it, or I'll hold myself to a discipline. I just started writing again with a friend of mine, and so I have to bring pages in, and I'm holding myself to that discipline. So it's I don't know, I'm just like everybody else, man. I'm trying to figure it out. Yeah.
No, absolutely. Well, it seems like you've done a pretty good job of figuring it out so far, and you've, based on...
that I don't know what the hell I'm doing.
Yeah, well, for someone who doesn't know what the hell you're doing a pretty good job of it.
Yeah.
I mean, again, especially with Orange is the New Black and True Detective, you seem to be finding the shows that people are talking about.
I didn't find them, though. You see, that's a very interesting thing. It's like I didn't find them. They found me. And that's one thing I think is important for people in my profession to hear, is that if you stay on your feet and you stay in the ring long enough, you'll get your shot. You'll work, and then you keep working. People get to know you and be okay. I think of guys like James Gammon. Who's a great character actor. If you know him, he was a wonderful actor, and nobody knew. He was the guy that Sam Shepard used to call to play all the paternal roles, when he would open his shows. And he'd do character parts in movies. And he played, he was the guy that played Don Johnson's dad in Nash Bridges.
Okay.
Yeah, Jim, a terrific guy. He's gone now, but really great actor. So... stay on your feet and stay in the ring,
Okay. Well, what can you tell us before we go? A couple more questions, but what can you tell us so far about where Orange is the New Black is heading. Have there been any discussions about season 3 yet? I know it got picked up.
We're in the middle of shooting season 3.
Oh, you are? So, awesome. So what could you, without giving anything away, of course, what could you tell us that we can expect from this, from Healy, or just a show in general?
Well, I think you can expect the same level of writing, if not better. There's a really wonderful building upon what's happened in the first 2 seasons. I know that's general, but it can't be much else than general. But what I mean by that is that it's the writing is really very it's done in a very beautifully detailed manner, so that you really go for the ride. I think people will really go for the ride.
Oh, cool. How many episodes have you shot so far? Would you say?
This is 8.
Oh, so you're already about 2/3 of the way done?
Yeah.
Oh, okay. So you have a good semblance on where you're going with the season. What about Healy? Are there any surprises in store for Healy at all, or I know you can't divulge much, but is there a different side that we see of him?
I think that there's nuances that you haven't seen. Certainly, there's been some of the stuff that they've given me that I've really. It's been wonderful to live through artistically. You know, I look at it kind of like painting. You know, and it's really cool colors that they give me to paint with, and so I think it's pretty cool what they've done with him.
All right, well, really excited. It's great that you get to see the whole season. When it comes out in one day, you can binge watch and watch it one day. But the bad side about that is you have to wait until your shooting season's over, unlike broadcast TV where they're in the middle of shooting and they just start showing episodes from week to week. So we just got to be patient and wait till next year to see season 3.
I'm grateful that you feel that way.
Yeah.
Thank you for watching it.
Oh, no, it's brilliant. It's a brilliant, brilliant show. You're great in it. Is there anything else that you're working on or anything else you want to pitch to us that you've got? Promote.
Yeah, I did a movie called Bad Hurt that's coming out. I think we're going to be in Sundance. We won't know that till January or February.
Okay.
But they just got great these distributors that came on just now that were really great. We're guys to sell the film. I don't quite know how that game works, but I haven't seen it, but they say it's really, really good. And it's really a film that deals with a lot of the issues that people in our country are dealing with. The war, what it's like for soldiers when they come home from the war, special needs kids and taking care of special needs kids, and then marriages, and it really hits on so many issues. And my friend Mark Kemble wrote it and directed it. It was workshopped at the Actors Studio many times, and I really felt very honored to be part of it. Theo Rossi is one of the producers, and he's in it.
Yeah,
he's really wonderful. Johnny Whitworth, Karen Allen, Iris Gilead, who's a wonderful young actress. And we had a really good crew. It was pretty cool. It was we didn't have a lot of time to do it, but we got 2 or 3 takes, so there wasn't a lot of time to. It was just kind of like set up and go. But sometimes I almost prefer that, and I think I wasn't going to do anything in that time period when we shot it, and then after I read it, I had to do it, and that doesn't happen. So again, lucky,
Oh, beautiful. And we'll know later if it comes out, if it's going to be over at Sundance.
Yeah, we should find. I don't know, when do you find out? January? If they told me January or February.
Well, Sundance comes out in January, so I'm guessing. Hopefully, they'll give you enough notice because you'll probably want to go over there.
They'll let us know. Yeah.
You'll want to plan your trip accordingly.
But I think a lot of people are really interested in it. So.
Okay, great. And then also you're on Twitter, I believe, right? So
Yes.
you joined the Twitter revolution, as you mentioned earlier, talking to Brazil, telling them that you like them, and people all over the world.
I go on once or twice a day for about 3 or 4 minutes.
Oh, yeah?
Yeah.
And you give them some, what are the kind of tweets we can expect from you? Just random,
From
you know,
me?
just replies to people? You just kind of answering the fans?
just responding as best I can to things. I'm pretty private, so.
Okay.
Yeah.
Well, if you have any questions for Michael, you definitely tweet him over at Michael Harney 4, I believe it is, right?
Yeah, and any questions from people that are watching the show, I'll certainly answer those.
Yeah. Beautiful. Awesome. So it pretty much wraps up the show. I want to thank you so much for coming on.
Thanks for
pleasure to
having
have
me.
you on. And like I said, I can't wait to see what's next and, as far as Healy and also Harney.
Thanks, man.
So yeah, it's been a pleasure. So so my name's Nando Velasquez. You could find me on Twitter at Nandovel, Nandovel, and here on AfterBuzz for other shows, recaps that we do, including Scorpion, Blacklist, and Walking Dead, and Homeland. And anyway, until the next Spotlight On, I'm Nando Velasquez, and tune in next time.
From executive producers Maria Menounos, Kevin Undergaro, Phil Svitek, and the entire AfterBuzz TV staff, we would like to thank you for listening to the AfterBuzz TV network. To watch or listen to other after shows and post comments or questions, be sure to visit AfterBuzzTV.com. I'm Sir Richard Wentworth, and this has been a presentation of AfterBuzz TV.
Buzz you later.
The views expressed herein are those of the hosts only and do not necessarily reflect the views of AfterBuzz TV or its owners or principals.